Hello and welcome to KJ's Kitchen. I am KJ. I am 13 years a master fitness trainer, a fitness nutrition specialist, and most important to me, I am a happy mom serving up healthy meals from my kitchen to yours every Wednesday at 12 o'clock here on Facebook. So, I don't know about you, but I love creating stretch meals. That is where it costs less, makes more, feeds more people, and you even, when you make a large enough stretch meal, get to have leftovers and recreate that in another way for lunch tomorrow or another dinner. It makes it convenient, affordable, and more people get fed. So instead of constantly buying hamburger and creating burgers, which typically people want a bun on, do any of you make meatloaf at home? It's something I grew up on and didn't love as a kid, but through my adult life, I have found amazing recipes that I have fallen in love with. And I thought, my husband's from Denmark, and meatballs, they call frikadelle, is very popular in Denmark. So we do a lot of meatball anything. I know I have a lot of Italian friends who are meatball fans as well. Give me some thumbs up or emoticons if you love meatballs yourself. Well, here's my take on it. I'm gonna make a meatball loaf. This is not just taking a meatball recipe and timesing it by 5 to make a large meatloaf. This is actually me creating a recipe, and I've tried this various ways, and I'm going with ground turkey instead of ground beef on this. I am not a fan of ground turkey. I will be totally honest. I think it's boring, bland, holds no flavor, so you gotta really season it up. But you will be pleasantly surprised. The reason I chose turkey for this, not only did I taste test this with turkey and beef, but it's so much easier on the digestion. Yes, there is a lot of health benefit behind eating grass-fed beef, but it is very tough on the system to digest. A lot of us who maybe have a more sensitive stomach, we hold it for days. You feel that bloat. So let me help you out by getting a little turkey meatball loaf in your world. Quick and easy. Well, I'm starting with my two meats of choice is 1 pound of ground turkey. And we do green wise. This is a Publix, so you do organic, natural, whatever you got going on in your local market. And 1 pound of pork. So the pork's gonna add the flavor. And you could go buy a pork sausage, but I'm not gonna promise you it'll taste the same. I make my own sausage out of any meat or vegetable. You know, I've done this even with lentils, by adding in a homemade spice blend. I will share this recipe for those of you who are subscribed, and if you need this recipe, you will subscribe today. This is my sausage seasoning. I pre-make it in a jar. You use 3 tablespoons of this per pound of meat or bean or whatever vegetarian-based meatball or sausage you wanna make, and you create the flavor of sausage. And what you're eliminating is preservatives, odd things like modified food starch that are in a lot of seasoned meats. So I will share this recipe for this spice. It's things like salt, paprika, garlic powder, fennel, black pepper, red pepper flakes. All these things are gonna make anything taste like sausage. So you can use it for ground chicken, ground turkey, lentils, like whatever you want to make sausage anything. How cool is that? So I already, before you got here, created my ground pork sausage by putting 3 tablespoons into this pound, gave it a good whirl. You could do this immediately, still create the recipe, it'll taste great. Or if you wanna prep this in advance, like you can do it overnight and let it sit and marinate in those flavors, or up to 3 hours. But let's start. I don't know about how you meatloaf, but when I add in all the meat and then just start stacking things, I'm not sure if it's very well blended. So I like the flavor to really get everywhere. I'm gonna start with the liquid, which is 2 eggs. We're gonna pop that in the bowl. 2 eggs first. And then I want to get all of my liquids and flavors in here, then add the meat. We're going grain-free because even if you're not gluten intolerant, it slowly will cut through your colon. So you'll eventually end up with IBS. So we're gonna go grain-free on this. So I could call this a keto meatball loaf for all of you keto fans out there, because we're gonna adding in flax meal, which is just ground flax, instead of any kind of breadcrumb or anything. And even instead of oats, because even if you can get gluten-free oats, it still is a grain. We're gonna stick with some healthy fats and have flax in here. I'm mixing it in a 1/4 cup of flax, and that's it for any form of like 1/4 cup going in with the egg. And now let's talk about spices. You will have some flavor and seasoning, whether you bought a ground pork sausage or created your own like I show you here. But we're gonna add a few things that really bring forward the flavor of a meatball and can help that turkey out, so we don't just like wash away the flavor with the turkey. If your kids aren't picky, you can go ahead and chop and saute up some onions. We have some picky children and they don't wanna see onions in their meatloaf. So I'm using minced onion, and I'm gonna rock out some minced onion right now, 1 tablespoon of that. And I'm putting all my flavor into my egg here. Gonna go into garlic powder, 1/2 teaspoon. Here we go. 1/2 teaspoon garlic powder. Again, if you are riding solo and don't have any picky kids with you, you could chop up a clove of garlic and mince that up really nicely and throw that in too. You could either brown it with your onions if you're gonna go full, or you could throw them in raw, the garlic. It depends on how you like to garlic. Gonna go with black pepper here, 1/2 teaspoon black pepper. It doesn't add too much heat, I promise. And then salt. 3/4 teaspoon salt. I didn't go with a full teaspoon of this because I did have salt already in my pork mix. I do want to get enough salt in there for the turkey. And now because this is a meatball, I'm gonna go with Italian seasoning. Not overpowering it either. 1 teaspoon of Italian seasoning. We get ours at Aldi's, organic Italian seasoning. For any of my Italian friends out there, I know that Pam Pister had tuned in at one point. Pam, if you're in there, maybe you have some suggestions for some good Italian meatballs too. I know you've been in the Italian family a long time. Now, something that reminds me of Italian food is Parmesan cheese. I have done this recipe with Asiago or Romano. Today I actually have Parmesan on me. And let's talk about cheese. I definitely took the liberty of buying a quick bag because I couldn't find, I ended up at Walmart this morning and could not find a chunk of Parmesan. But typically we like to buy a chunk of Parmesan. They just didn't have any there at Walmart. They don't have a huge cheese selection. So I ended up with pre-grated, pre-shredded Parmesan. The reason I don't love this typically is it does have things like modified food starch in there. You're not confirmed that it's pure and clean. You could shred your own, although more expensive. A block might cost you more, but it's gonna last you a long time. So you're gonna go with a 1/2 cup of Parmesan into the meatball. That's a 1/4 there. Now we've got a 1/2. Boop. There we go. Last but not least, a typical meatloaf does call for Worcestershire sauce. I was at the very end of my bottle and I measured it out to make sure I could even get enough. But Worcestershire is typical for a normal meatloaf. We're gonna put it in this meatball loaf. Oh, Walmart has their blocks in the deli area. Thank you, Stephanie. I will learn that for next time. I really appreciate that tip. 3 teaspoons, which is 1 tablespoon. 1 tablespoon of Worcestershire sauce. Popping her in there. And what typically goes in a meatloaf, whether you're doing like a fiesta salsa meatloaf or whatever, is ketchup. But we're skipping out on the ketchup, guys, and we're gonna go with some organic marinara. This one's tomato basil. You could go with roasted garlic. I've had them a variety of ways. I always buy organic. Just check the ingredient list Make sure sugar is not sitting in there. This one is 6 sugars naturally occurring in all of the things, but sugar is not in the list as an additive. So it even says no sugar added. So read your labels. We don't need the added sugar. It tastes amazing without it. If you're gonna make your own homemade gravy, as the Italianos will call it, go for it. And I don't know if you can it or do what you want. Fresh is always best, but I don't have time for gravy half the time as a mom. So I get Classico. I know Trader Joe's, even Walmart has their own brand of organic. And we're gonna rock out marinara in here. I'm gonna do 1/3 cup inside, but I will be topping it as well. So all of this is my liquids and my flavors. That's it, and that completes our recipe here. What I'm gonna be doing now is getting my hands dirty. Have your oven preheated, which I just did, for 350. So while you're doing all the mixing, the oven will preheat. And I can get my hands really messy for you guys because that's kind of fun. And here we are live. I'm showing you in real time what's happening. I'm gonna first stir up these bad boys, getting all of my liquids and flavors into one ingredient. This is going to allow me, once I blend it with the meat, to get this flavor everywhere. Because sometimes you put the meat in, you start sprinkling it with salt, pepper, all these other things, and you end up not getting it all completely distributed. Sometimes you'll take a bite and be like, whoa, that was very zesty on pepper or whatever, you know. It's easier to me, and I like easy, to get it all in one ingredient. Right there, we've got the flavor. Flavor profile done. Going in for the pork. I'm gonna get way dirty, guys. You ready? Get messy. And then the turkey. I better cut my turkey bag real quick. It's turkey seal. I prefer frozen meats. I think I've already shared that with you guys. Ground turkey I don't always find in the frozen section though. So you do what you can. Get those hands dirty, get it working. I don't know. Please talk to me in the comment fields. Do you ever not use your hands when doing a meatloaf? I've not found an alternative because I really want it worked in, all those flavors. Oh, Stephanie's gonna share a recipe for her homemade marinara. I would love that, Stephanie. Please, please, please share. I would love, because I've never, aside from making it for a quick pasta, I have made quick homemade marinara for pastas, but I've never made like a big pot of the gravy. So I know that the Italian families out there, that's kind of like a family tradition, and you're probably always talking about your mama's gravy. So, oh, Christy makes Larry do it. That's a good thing. Thanks, Larry. Larry can share his recipe too. We can compare recipes. I got a yuck out there with Christy. A yuck for mixing up. Oh, you make Larry mix up your meatloaf, not make your marinara. I hear ya. I hear ya. So I'm getting really nice and yuck over here. What you're gonna notice with this recipe is it's not super dry. Sometimes I've made meatloafs where it really does seem more like the ground meat only and you didn't add all the good stuff. But the egg and the flax are gonna work really well. And here we go. I'm so messy. Here we go. I'm gonna show it to you. Look at that. It's really like loose and not super firm. It's not falling out by any means. You know, it's got some grip. But I'm gonna put it in my pan. Watch me. I brought napkins so I can grab my pan. You're gonna wanna use a Pyrex or any form of baking dish. You could put this into something that is an actual loaf form. I actually create a loaf in this pan here. So watch me get creative, balling my big old saucy, meaty loaf, my meatball. I'm gonna plop her in the pan. I kind of created a little, created a little ball just to get it out. I am gonna go ahead with my hands, because that's what's messy, scrape out all the good stuff, extra Parmesan sitting around. And I'm just gonna pat it around and make it look like a loaf. And when I say a loaf, I'll show you this on camera real quick. A little bit more like bread loaf when you have a really pretty loaf of bread that's not a square, a rounded boule. How do I say? You know what word I'm trying to say? Can someone say that on audio for me? Boule? Here we go. There we go. It's padded, it's pretty. I got her in here, I'll show her to you. Now you could make 2 mini loaves if you really feel like it's for a small family and you want to preserve one of them. You could go side by side, 2 separate dishes, however you want, and make 2 mini loaves. I will wash my hands properly after this, but right now I'm not going to disappear for you as much as, getting my next and last step. 1/3 of marinara again. And I put it right on top. I don't try to get it to fall off. I like it to be literally on top. On top, on top. And get my little spatula here that I have going on. And just, as it bakes, this marinara will thicken up. Just as if you ever use these style of sauces, just even for your pastas at home, you know that it will thicken up the longer it cooks. So it's just topped. I'm not gonna make you wait an hour, but I'm gonna put it in the oven for up to an hour. It might be around 50 minutes, 55, maybe an hour. That will all depend on the heat of your oven. I mean, like where you are, elevation, and what your oven's doing, if it's convection or not. So keep an eye on it, 50 minutes to an hour. I typically do an hour myself. And this puppy's gonna come out piping hot. Let it sit for 5 minutes before serving. And feel free to get really creative. Like you could sprinkle Parmesan on top because it is a meatball. It's a meatball loaf. My family loves it. We know what we're having for dinner tonight. And if this recipe served you, please tag me on your wall, post it to your wall, tag a friend in here if you think it would serve them. This is the best way to eat ground turkey, I promise you. You could make them into little balls. I'd love to hear if that worked for you or not, and then pop them into the marinara sauce. I really like that this is actually a meatloaf, and it tastes and looks like meatloaf with a twist. It's got that really yummy meatball essence in there and everything Italian I infused. Tune in every Wednesday at 12. I'll be putting a live link in the comment fields within the next few hours. That link is if you want these recipes and all of KJ Kitchen recipes to your inbox. If you've already subscribed, no need to click the link again. You will get this recipe in the next 24 hours. And I really appreciate it. Please share this to your wall. Tell your friends tuning in. Have a happy Wellness Wednesday. And let's keep cooking up healthy meals. Every Wednesday, 12 o'clock, join me on KJ Fit. Thank you guys.